Novak Djokovic has once again become the center of attention, not for a win, not for a speech, but for a photo. On Sunday, the 24-time Grand Slam champion was seen practicing at Wimbledon with a large knee brace clearly visible under his shorts. The image immediately made waves online and reignited one of the most common conversations around Djokovic. Is he really injured, or is this just part of the routine? It is well known that the greatest tennis player of all time suffered a right meniscus injury at last year's Roland Garros, which led to surgery and a recovery that lasted until Wimbledon. Then he had to give up the match without a fight to Casper Ruud, and now, ahead of his fourth-round clash with Alex de Minaur, he has been seen training with a brace around his right knee. But some fans are not buying it. They say it's always something with him. A timeout here, a strap there. It's part of the show, and that feeling isn't new. Over the years, Djokovic has built a reputation, fair or not, for walking a fine line between resilience and theater. Novak Djokovic has faced multiple accusations of faking injuries throughout his career, with several high-profile figures publicly questioning his physical issues during key matches. One notable instance occurred in January 2025 during his quarterfinal match against Carlos Alcaraz at the Australian Open. John McEnroe, who was commentating for ESPN, suggested that Djokovic was faking an injury to gain a tactical advantage. McEnroe described Djokovic's practice of taking medical timeouts as a routine, implying that the Serbian might be using the injury break strategically to disrupt his opponent's concentration. McEnroe's comments echoed previous criticisms of Djokovic's injury management, suggesting that it was a familiar pattern for him. In 2006, during a Davis Cup tie between Serbia and Switzerland, Roger Federer also accused Djokovic of faking an injury. At the time, Djokovic, then just 19, called for a trainer while playing against his compatriot Stan Wawrinka. Federer, who was the world number one at the time, voiced his distrust of Djokovic's injuries, stating, "I don't trust his injuries. I'm serious," and went as far as to call Djokovic's behavior a joke in relation to his physical complaints. This early accusation by Federer set the stage for future skepticism surrounding Djokovic's injury claims. Federer's criticism resurfaced in 2009 during the Australian Open after Djokovic retired from his quarterfinal match against Andy Roddick due to heat exhaustion. Federer expressed disappointment over Djokovic's retirement, saying, "It's happened before. He's not the guy who's never given up before." He specifically referenced Djokovic's previous retirement from a match against him in Monaco due to a sore throat, implying that Djokovic was quick to give up in challenging situations. Federer suggested that Djokovic's retirement might have been more about his losing position rather than a legitimate physical issue. In 2008, ahead of his quarterfinal encounter at the US Open, Andy Roddick mocked Djokovic for his ongoing injury complaints throughout the tournament. Roddick sarcastically listed a series of supposed injuries Djokovic had endured, including ailments like ankles, back, hip, and even bird flu and SARS. Roddick's comments reflected a perception that Djokovic might have been exaggerating his physical problems, implying that he either used injuries as an excuse or was overly quick to call a trainer during matches. The tension between the two was further fueled when Djokovic, after winning the match, responded to Roddick's remarks in his on-court interview, accusing the American of spreading false claims about his health. More recently, in 2024, John Alexander, a former tennis pro, criticized Djokovic's use of medical timeouts during his match at the United Cup against Jiri Lehecka. Alexander suggested that Djokovic might be using these breaks strategically, not just for physical recovery, but to disrupt his opponent's focus. He argued that Djokovic's use of timeouts, particularly after losing a set, could be a deliberate tactic to gain an advantage over his opponent mentally, raising questions about whether such strategic use of injury timeouts was fair play. Finally, Adriano Panatta, a former world number one, voiced skepticism about Djokovic's meniscus injury in 2024 after Djokovic underwent surgery following a tear during his fourth-round win at the French Open. Panatta questioned the legitimacy of Djokovic's injury and his swift recovery, implying that the Serbian might be downplaying the severity of his condition. He suggested there was a big mystery surrounding Djokovic's physical status and recovery process, particularly given how quickly Djokovic returned to play at Wimbledon, leading some to wonder whether Djokovic was bluffing or not being entirely forthcoming about the extent of his injury. Most recently, Nick Kyrgios said just last week that Djokovic uses these moments to gain a mental edge. He does this early in slams, Kyrgios claimed, to mess with people's heads. But Djokovic himself has been very open about his physical condition in recent interviews. He's admitted that his knee isn't perfect, but insists he's taking every precaution. According to those close to him, the brace is part of that effort. Not a performance, but protection. The broader tennis world seems split. On one side, there's the narrative of Novak as the ultimate competitor, pushing through pain, never backing down, always doing what's necessary to stay in the fight. On the other, there's the idea of Novak the showman, controlling the tempo, shifting the spotlight, and using doubt to his advantage. Either way, the brace is doing more than supporting his knee. It's once again put Djokovic exactly where he often ends up during slams, right in the middle of a polarizing conversation. Whether this brace is a sign of vulnerability or strategy, what's clear is that Novak Djokovic's presence still commands attention. One photo, one bandage, and suddenly the sport is talking about him again, questioning, analyzing, debating. The scrutiny Novak Djokovic faces in moments like this isn't just about a piece of medical equipment. It's about his history, his reputation, and the complicated relationship he has with the tennis public. For most players, wearing a knee brace after surgery wouldn't raise any eyebrows, but with Djokovic, even the most minor physical sign becomes fuel for controversy. This is partly because of how often these moments have occurred at the highest stakes tournaments. Over the last decade, fans and commentators alike have noticed a pattern: a visible limp, a grimace during a match, a sudden medical timeout, and then, not long after, a performance that defies expectations. Djokovic has often looked vulnerable only to roar back with renewed intensity. Some view this as legendary grit, others call it gamesmanship. That dichotomy was front and center after the knee brace image surfaced. Social media erupted with theories. Was this a sign that Djokovic was still dealing with post-surgery pain? Or was it a calculated move to generate sympathy, reduce pressure, or even gain a psychological edge over his opponents? Adding more fuel to the fire are past incidents. During the 2021 Australian Open, Djokovic played through what was revealed to be a torn abdominal muscle and went on to win the title. At the 2023 edition, he again reported a hamstring issue, yet bulldozed through the draw. In both cases, some skeptics refused to believe he was really injured at all. The truth, of course, likely sits somewhere in between. Injuries in tennis aren't black and white. Players often compete with discomfort, pushing their limits and trusting their team to manage risk. Djokovic, with his meticulous training, tight-knit medical staff, and deep understanding of his body, may simply be more calculated in how he handles these situations than others. Still, perception is powerful. Roger Federer's blunt comments from years ago continue to echo in this conversation. Federer criticized Djokovic for calling trainers too frequently and suggested he used ailments as excuses, or worse, tactics. Even if Federer no longer pushes that narrative today, many fans remember. So when Djokovic steps onto the practice court in 2025 wearing a visible knee brace, the baggage from those earlier moments comes with him. It's no longer just about his physical condition, it's about his identity in the sport. While someone like Rafael Nadal might be universally applauded for fighting through pain, Djokovic faces more suspicion, more headlines that question instead of praise. It's a dynamic he's fully aware of. In interviews, Djokovic has addressed the ongoing doubts, saying, "It's always easier to judge and criticize than to understand." He's right, and it's part of why he's always walked a tricky line in the court of public opinion. There's also the mental toll to consider. Few players are subjected to the same level of scrutiny as Djokovic. Every gesture is analyzed, every medical timeout dissected, and yet he remains as driven as ever. That in itself is remarkable. Many athletes faced with that kind of microscope would retreat. Djokovic, for better or worse, thrives on it. And this latest episode, a simple brace, a training session, an internet frenzy, is proof of that pattern. Whether he's planning something strategic or just taking care of his knee post-surgery, the response is the same. Waves of attention, split opinion, and once again, the spotlight firmly fixed on him. What's ironic is that the brace may not even mean much. It could just be a precaution, a common tool for post-surgical support. But because it's Djokovic, it becomes something else. It becomes a story, a debate, a symbol. And that says more about how people see him than anything about his actual condition. And it's hard to judge from the pictures. Is it a big tight brace or a light one? Whatever it is, it has not been uncommon for fans to jump to conclusions that are often wrong. Even the loved Nadal faced accusations of faking injuries as he aged, especially around the time he was nearing 35. There were claims that people doubted Nadal's injuries, accusing him of faking or exaggerating physical issues. Those familiar with professional tennis recognize that Nadal's struggles were legitimate. His injuries were real, and they were a result of the intense demands of the sport, particularly the toll on the body over time. This context helps clarify that the notion of players faking injuries, as some online voices have suggested, is baseless. In fact, it's not unusual for elite athletes like Nadal Nadal before, and now Djokovic to face ongoing physical challenges, particularly as they age. In Djokovic's case, the knee brace is likely a response to the physical strain of playing at such a high level. One specific incident during his recent matches, a fall while serving at 5-2, was noted by some as potentially exacerbating his knee issues. The fall could have placed additional stress on his knee, making the brace not just precautionary, but necessary. This is especially relevant when considering Djokovic's age and the impact of years of wear and tear. So what does all of this mean for Djokovic going forward? It's simple. Nothing has changed. He'll continue doing what he always does, competing, recovering, and walking the line between doubt and dominance. The brace will come off eventually, but the conversations won't. The idea that Djokovic somehow uses these moments to his advantage, whether true or not, is now part of the myth. In a career that's been defined by polarizing brilliance, this is just another chapter. Novak Djokovic, knee brace or not, remains one of the most watched, questioned, and fascinating figures in tennis. And the fact that a single photo could spark so much noise is all the proof you need.